Welcome to another episode of today's Candor. I'm your host, Barika. Thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to tune in. In this episode 18, in this episode, I'm discussing celebrating your small wins. All wins are important, but we have a tendency to push our smaller wins to the side or brush them under the rug. We don't acknowledge them. And on the other side of that, if they are important to us, the small wins, but they don't necessarily seem important to someone else, and in particular, someone else who is important in our world, whether that be a loved one, family, friends, a significant other, a spouse, when they don't acknowledge it, it may, upset us, disappoint us. It just makes us feel away, a whirlwind of emotions. And rightfully so. But let's talk a little bit about how we can manage those emotions so that when these wins come up and they may not be acknowledged by someone else, let's talk a little bit about managing how we feel when this happens, because it is human nature. Of course, we want those who we care about to care about how we feel. And in this case, if we achieve something, no matter how big or small the achievement is, it should be acknowledged. But let's tune into how we can acknowledge our own small wins, still make ourselves feel good, and still talk a little bit about how maybe we can help the other person, for lack of better terms, learn to do so. So let's just start a little bit with acknowledging your own small wins, because it's important for you to do it for yourself first and foremost. Acknowledging your own small wins is important for so many reasons. One, just so you can continue to feel like you are making progress towards the goal or goals that you are looking to accomplish, the goals that you have set. So I like to think, I know that this works this way for me. I know that when I acknowledge a small win, it helps to breed more motivation. It helps to breed continuous creativity. It just gets those creative juices flowing where I'm like, okay, like this is what's working. This is what is helping me and allowing me to progress and continue to walk through this journey. Because achieving the goal, it's a journey. You don't just get to the end game and be like, all right, this is what happened. It's the whole way through. It's the entire walk. And so being able to celebrate whatever it is that you might have accomplished, being able to just sit back, whether it's taking a moment to just realize it, really take it in, really absorb it and understand what just happened so that you can continue to achieve those stepping stones throughout the journey to get to the end goal. It's very important. And sometimes what people don't understand, and of course it works differently. It works differently for everyone, because some people will say, I don't necessarily need to acknowledge my small wins in order for me to continuously feel motivated. But there are some people who that does make them feel better. It does help them feel like, okay, I'm actually making some progress, especially if it's something that is taking maybe a little longer than they thought it would to achieve, or just something that, it might be taking a lot out of them, whether it's financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever the case may be. If it's something that is draining a person, and not even in a negative way per se, it's just that if there's a lot of work going into a goal and you don't sit back to say, you know what, I'm actually making that progress, I'm actually feeling like I'm doing something, you may not even get to the goal. You may want to quit. You may want to stop because you're just like, nothing's working, or I don't feel like I'm really getting anywhere. But those stepping stones, those little small goals in between, those small wins rather in between, is what helps you to say, I'm actually making some progress. I am doing something. So look at it that way. And acknowledging a small win is not the same. It's not going to look the same for everybody. Some people might want to actually celebrate it. They may say, I want to go out and do something big and really make myself feel good about this. Some people might want to do something smaller. Whatever it is, do what's going to make you happy and feel like, hey, this is what actually took place. I achieved XYZ. And let me see how I can continue to do this so that I can actually achieve the goal the long term. So whatever it is, it could be shopping. It could be taking yourself out to your favorite restaurant. It could be going on a small trip. You might say, I just want a weekend getaway. Because in acknowledging the small win, you might also say, let me just take a deep breath, because it might have taken a lot out of you to get to that small win. And there's nothing wrong with that. But whatever celebrating looks like to you, so that you can acknowledge what you just did and what you just achieved, is perfectly fine. I also say don't wait on someone to acknowledge it for you. While that's not the best feeling in the world, I get it. I have experienced it. I have been there where I felt like I just achieved something and it was big to me. It was big for me. And these goals can be anything, whether it's a job that you've been waiting to call you back so you get the actual offer. And it might be even more than what you thought. Like they might have offered you more salary than you were expecting or what you asked for. And it could be anything. It could be just working towards a financial goal. It could be working towards a fitness goal. Whatever it is, sit down and look at those small wins and write them down. Writing it down, write it in a journal, write it in a gratitude journal where you're grateful that this has come about. You actually had the wherewithal and the capacity and the resources to achieve this small win so that it can get you to the next step. It can get you to the final result. So going back to managing just how someone else might deal with your small wins, where they might not even acknowledge it or think anything of it, or it's just another day to them. So like I said, I've experienced this, and I know and I understand that sometimes it can be disappointing or hurtful, or just you're like, how could you not see? How could you not see all that I am doing or all that I have done to get to this point? And there's two things to this. So one, there's some people who are going to be able to just say, I might not even need it from the other person. I'm acknowledging it. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing my thing. You have those people. But then you have other people, and this is a category I fit in. I like to have that acknowledgement. I like to have it from my partner. I like to have it from sometimes just depending on what it is. I may also want my close friends to acknowledge it. But absolutely, I want my man to acknowledge it, right? And so there are people who fit in that category where they're like, I need my partner, I want my partner or my spouse or significant other to acknowledge this goal with me or this small win rather. And then sometimes it's people who just, it might be mom and dad, whoever it is, but being able to manage those emotions and not having it not allowing it to make you feel frazzled and just, was it really not anything? No, absolutely. Do not doubt yourself. Do not second guess yourself and say, oh, is it not that big because somebody else? Is it not really a win because somebody else didn't acknowledge what took place? It absolutely is a win. The determining factor is not if somebody else does or does not acknowledge it. The determining factor is just what it is. You made some sort of progress. You achieved something. That's the win. And I tell people, and I've said to people, and this is advice that I've had to learn to take so that I can practice what I'm preaching. At the end of the day, everyone's not going to see it the way you see it. And that is not an easy pill to swallow. It is not, especially if it's not about being emotional. But if you're a person who I don't even want to say need or require, but you may just like reassurance, and nothing is wrong with that. But sometimes what we like to do is think that we don't need to tell or teach or just simply letting someone know what we like. We have to realize when we are, and I'll take a significant other. Sometimes when we are in relationships, we say, well, I don't want to teach someone how to, I don't want to teach someone what they should already know about me or what they should observe about me and this and that. Yes, of course. Who you're with should definitely be observing certain things about you, what you do and don't like, what makes you feel a certain way. Absolutely. But sometimes we do have to teach our significant other, like, hey, this is also something that I like. And the reason being is they aren't necessarily not doing something intentionally. They may just not know. They may not know how to do it. And if you never inform them, if you never help them with that, how will they know? If they didn't have it in their upbringing, if they didn't come up with, parents or whoever might have raised them where those people, for example, were celebrating small wins or just acknowledging them and just making them feel like, hey, this is important, they wouldn't know. And sometimes people aren't able to adjust their minds, if you will, and redirect their minds to say, yes, I didn't have this, I didn't have this in my upbringing, but I want to be able to do this as an adult. Some people aren't able to redirect their minds to do the opposite of what they may have learned and what they've come up with. Some of us can redirect, some of us cannot. And we see that every day. It doesn't matter what the relationship is, significant other, siblings, parents, whatever the case. But sometimes we have to take the time to remind someone, hey, this is what I like. Now, once you have to keep talking about it, it's obviously, one, it's no longer a mistake. And two, I'm just like, all right, this is not important to that person. So then that's a whole nother conversation and you have to deal with that differently. But we have to realize when we are dealing with people, so it can be friends, it can be a significant other, we have to sometimes remind them, teach them, inform them, educate them, however you want to see it, word it. We have to sometimes let them know, hey, this is what I like. This is what I prefer. And don't see it as a negative thing, especially if it's something that has not been a, real conversation. There hasn't been any genuine communication about. It's okay to have to teach somebody that we all have different learned behaviors. We all have different upbringings. So there's no way that everybody's going to know the same thing or know exactly what you like. But take the time. So if you feel like you want someone who you're close to acknowledge your small wins, simply pull them to the side and say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's do this. I would prefer that you acknowledge it and go through the conversation however you see fit. Of course, that's going to happen differently for everyone. But having that open communication about it, because everyone doesn't know. Everyone doesn't know. And everything that's important to us is not important to the next person. So there are just there's so many different just ins and outs to all of this. But I say all that to say, be comfortable, get in a habit of saying, even if nobody else acknowledges my small wins, even if my small wins are not important to the next person, I'm going to acknowledge them. And sometimes it's not that it's not important to the other person. They may just not know how to come to you about it. They may not know how to address it or approach it. Because once again, is that something they even know? Did they learn that? So giving people that grace, being able to have conversations, being able to communicate and understand where a person's mind is, and then taking it from there. But get into that habit of just saying, you know what, these are the small wins. And once again, writing them down. Writing them down so that if you want to go back to them and maybe just have them there for reference, or you're just trying to keep track of everything that might have taken place on this journey to a particular goal, whatever the case may be, I think writing it down is helpful. Like anything else, I always say to write stuff down. I'm big on that. But it allows you to go back and refer to things and track your progress. So you can see what needs to be tweaked maybe, or is this, maybe a perfect routine for me to keep going, to keep achieving and get to my goal, the end goal. And small wins teach you so many things. They teach you different things. So sometimes, there's the saying, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But There's a quote, and I forget who it's by, that is sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. The lose is that part of the quote that's saying sometimes you lose. It's not really that you're losing anything. It might feel like a loss, but you're learning something, like a lesson, for example. So, but those small wins, they're just important because they can teach you maybe about the resilience that you didn't know you had. Maybe it teaches you a new routine that you can put into place to keep achieving something. Like if you've created, you might have established a small business, and maybe you're finally starting to see like a clientele grow or your numbers, whatever the case. And maybe you have finally cracked the code where you're like, okay, this is what's working. I'm going to stick with this. If you have to change it down the line, so be it. But right now, this is what's working. Write that down. Make note of it. But that small win, just acknowledging. If you don't, for me, I like to also acknowledge it. I just want to keep my motivation going. I want to continue with my progress, the creativity, because some days the creativity is not there. Anybody who is creating anything knows that. They know sometimes you just have a day where you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, talk about, make. What's my content going to entail? We have those days. If you're a writer, the writer's block, but that block comes in all types of forms, whether you write or you're just a different type of creator. It comes in all different forms. But when you start to really acknowledging just the progress that you're making, I feel like it honestly helps you. It gives you a little push. It gives you that little oomph to keep going. Because when you don't acknowledge it, are you just in a whirlwind? Are you just in a space where you don't know if you're making progress, or are you making yourself feel good about what you're doing? No matter what the goal is, short term, long term, no matter how small or big the goal is, clock that progress so you can have it as a reference. Nothing is wrong with that. And be okay with acknowledging it yourself. Be okay and get in the habit of just saying, you know what? I did this. I did this today, accomplished this. This was my win right here. And I did what I had to do, and I stayed the course. If nobody else tells you that they are proud of you, be able to just either look in the mirror or write it down, whatever the case, be able to do it for yourself. Because if we always wait on other people to give us our accolades, flowers, credit, however you want to call it, sometimes you might be waiting around and holding your breath. No need. So you're either going to have a conversation about it, or you're going to be able to get into the habit and manage those emotions and say, you know what? I acknowledged it for me. I'm going to go get me some ice cream. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to go shopping. I'm going to go get me that bag that I've been wanting for a little while. Whatever it is that's going to make you feel like that small win was good to me, good enough for me. That's all that works. That's all that matters. As long as it works for you. Get in that habit. So as always, continue to follow, like, and share. Share this. The reel is on Instagram. Anyone who follows me on Instagram, I did a reel in regards to this topic. So continue to follow, like, and share the podcast episodes, the reels. You never know who it might just make a little light bulb go off in their head. Give them a little push. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram, turn on your notifications if you need to, just so you can know when I am posting those reels about the doses of candor. So as always, I appreciate your support and taking the time to tune in. And until next time, stay safe and stay candid.